Hello, friends. I continue my monologues with answers to interesting questions about life and finance. Today, in the information space, in the world of investments, there are many different proverbs, set expressions that can mislead you. And based on these proverbs, you often make wrong decisions. Let's analyze some myths and misconceptions of two such proverbs today. So, the first one sounds something like this: don't put your eggs in one basket. The thesis about the obligatory diversification of assets today sounds from everywhere, from financial gurus, from so-called investment experts. Let's look at it more specifically and in more detail, try to understand where the truth is hidden. In fact, everything in life is much more complicated than it seems at first glance. There is no problem keeping all your eggs in one basket if you are confident in yourself and in the effectiveness of the chosen path. This saying is beautiful, but stupid, misleading. It does not fully reveal the secret of success in investments, in life in general. If the basket is excellent, very good, then on the contrary, all your available resources should be directed there. This concept of diversification always pops up exactly at the moment when we cannot calculate the risks normally. The question arises, why invest even $1 where you are not sure of the effectiveness? Invest where you do not understand, where you are completely incompetent. If we knew exactly where the growth would occur, where the profit and benefit would be, then in this case diversification would be harmful to us. Absolutely logical. If you know for sure that some probable event will happen, then why are you trying to distribute your efforts in all directions at once? Why invest in different countries, country diversification, in different businesses? Why do we voluntarily lose efficiency, waste time and resources? But because we do not know what will happen in the future, we choose tools based on chance, not knowledge. We need this notorious diversification that everyone constantly tells us about. In fact, it is better to always hit one point. This saves strength, energy, time. This is the only way to achieve real success. Do not scatter on everything in a row. The idea of diversification is basically correct, and it is designed for unqualified investors, for followers, not leaders, for those who do not understand anything about investments. For conventional casino players who blindly trust everything that others say. Diversification is useful only for those who are completely devoid of competence and their own qualifications. It is to such people that all this advice is given. In the hope that if, for example, one issuer of a security goes bankrupt, then you will not lose everything, but only a part. But you must admit, it is better to make an effort and increase the chances of success of a particular basket, than to trust to chance and be a bystander. Why did we suddenly decide that the expected investment result does not depend on us? Why did we decide that all probabilities of success or loss are necessarily unpredictable? Excuse me, but we are not playing roulette, are we? For a competent investor, for a truly reasonable person, one basket should always be better than another. Investing in one close person is preferable to all around. Simply because we all have different qualifications, understand different areas. Let's say you are well versed in residential real estate, you are an expert, you know how to manage, you know how everything works. You know how to pay taxes, how to conclude lease agreements, all the rules of the game are known and obvious to you. Why, tell me, in that case invest even a ruble in cryptocurrencies or the stock market, in which you, for example, understand nothing at all. Invest where practically nothing depends on you personally and the risks of losing capital will be correspondingly higher. And vice versa, why invest even a cent of your capital in real estate, if you yourself understand nothing about it, do not know how to choose an object, and your knowledge and experience are practically zero. But you, for example, are well versed in baking and you already have your own bakery, many years of experience and knowledge in this area. Or in any other area, in business. Or you, for example, have complete information on the shares of a particular enterprise, you are included in this area and understand it more than others. Or, for example, you are a good specialist in computer development, internet marketing or something else. Why then invest even 1 cent in something else? Why artificially distribute your resources in different areas in which you are incompetent? The answer is obvious: to diversify risks. But then you have to understand that you are losing in profitability, you are losing in efficiency. In other words, you are trading your incompetence for the opportunity to distribute your forces across different points. Instead of finding one good point and hitting it with all your strength, thereby driving a nail into a solid board. But by diversifying, you're like scratching that board with light touches in different places, without achieving what you want. Most successful investors actually have the lion's share of their capital in the businesses they're involved in. Elon Musk, for example, puts more eggs in one basket, his brainchild, Tesla. Because he knows how it really works. The same goes for Warren Buffett and many, many other successful investors. They always have their favorite stocks to invest in. If you look closely, almost none of the rich people in practice blindly act on this principle: put your eggs in different baskets. It would be short-sighted on their part, since it would be more difficult for them to achieve success. Although at all the investment conferences, at all the courses, this is all that is instilled in ordinary people: diversify, put your eggs in different baskets, distribute risks. Here, not everything is so clear and there is something to think about. In the business that you are engaged in, much more depends on you. Not everything, of course, but a lot. And it is always more profitable to invest in yourself, in your knowledge and skills, in your brainchild, than to blindly buy IOUs of some strangers. Believe me, all the risks have long been calculated, and behind high returns, as a rule, there is a much greater risk. I recommend simply taking off your rose-colored glasses and looking at investments with a more sober, practical view. Completely passive investments and passive income are a utopia, in a sense, a myth, usually imposed by info-gypsies. Passive investments are conditional, work is still necessary. Even in a philosophical sense, only investing in yourself can give a truly high return and a positive effect. Sometimes it is useful to simply pay attention, for example, to your health, your family, than to blindly chase some mythical goals in those sectors in which you do not understand anything. For you specifically, in your field, in which you are well versed, there will always be fewer risks than in the businesses of strangers you do not know. And it is logical that it is correct to choose this specific basket for eggs, and not some other. Speculating, guessing, this is, of course, wonderful, but you and I are not in a casino. This will be more like gambling, not investments. Businessmen often withdraw part of the funds from their business not because they wanted to do some diversification, but because, for example, the market capacity does not allow them to reinvest more capital. That is, the expected benefit from new investments will be less. To put it simply, new money there, in business, is no longer needed, it will not bring more income. If the capacity market in some particular niche was infinite, then the businessman would invest absolutely all his money only in his one business, would put absolutely all his eggs in one specific basket, which he himself controls. And this is quite logical. Consequently, the very principle of diversification should be treated with a healthy dose of skepticism. This is a beautiful slogan, a generalization, behind which there is not always a reasonable choice of the investor himself. And he was just told this in training courses. The next proverb that I would like to discuss with you today was uttered by Woland, the hero of Mikhail Bulgakov's novel, The Master and Margarita, and it sounds like this: never ask for anything, especially from those who are stronger than you. They will offer it themselves and give everything themselves. I would like to discuss this idea from the position of investments, and especially from the position of human psychology, philosophy, and life wisdom. This phrase has become popular, is widely used, and I have heard it from many people many times: never ask anything from other people. But people repeat it like parrots, without thinking about the essence of this proverb. It is interesting that sometimes even believers, religious people repeat this phrase. Although it was uttered in the novel by Woland, that is, according to the plot, the devil, who came to Moscow. And this principle completely contradicts another biblical phrase, an idea that sounds like this: ask and it will be given to you. If you think about it, the attitude, never ask anything from anyone, is destructive to human relationships. And the great writer Bulgakov did not just put this proverb into the mouth of Satan for no reason. Let's figure it out. So, undoubtedly, asking for something is always really difficult for us. And to be honest, this is my problem too, and many people's, often even more than decent people. Sometimes it is easier for them to fulfill someone's request themselves than to ask themselves. Not asking, this seems to us to be the position of a proud, independent person. We clearly see the most obvious facet of this quality, a sense of self-worth. But we forget that pride is always adjacent to a sense of superiority, degenerates into arrogance. Pride manifests itself in the fact that we do not want to be obligated to someone. Or we are simply afraid of refusal from the one from whom we ask. We are afraid to seem weak. And this, my friends, is not pride at all, but arrogance, which is considered a sin in many religions. Arrogance separates people, prevents us from understanding each other. Without social interaction, without the support and help of others, a person actually becomes weak and vulnerable. Not many people think about such an important concept as solidarity. To ask someone for help means to tame your arrogance, to bring down your conceit. From a psychological point of view, it is important for us to admit, I need another person. Sometimes it seems to us that asking a strong person means humiliating ourselves, asking for some kind of handout. We feel well where this fine line lies. We often ask close people, relatives, more willingly than strangers, because it is psychologically easier to appear weak in front of close people than in front of strangers. But we still remember this phrase of Woland, who especially advised us not to ask the strong, successful people. But you must agree that absolutely any person who can help in a specific area is already a priori stronger than us in some way. Surely you have heard this phrase from your acquaintances or friends, I have never asked my boss for a promotion or a raise, and then comes the following self-justification, that's why I was passed over by more impudent colleagues at work, who constantly asked, as if they were kissing the boss's ass. But my personal experience of communicating with managers, on the contrary, says that they prefer to promote precisely those employees who ask them to do so. Why? Simply because it is a psychological marker, evidence that the person asking is ready for the next step. If he asks you today, then in the future he will most likely be ready to make more efforts, will diligently strive to justify your trust. And if the manager himself decides to promote someone, without the employee's request, then the burden of responsibility for the decision falls only on him. After all, he was not asked, this is his voluntaristic decision. The same goes for requests for a raise. When asking for a raise, we must somehow justify it. Present our achievements, our specific plan. Like, pay me more, and in return I will bring the company much more profit. This is essentially turning into not a request for a handout, but a full-fledged negotiation between two equal subjects who exchange their resources. One buys the labor and time of another, and in return the latter asks for a salary increase, monetizes his competencies and trust. Those who do not ask, constantly expect to be noticed and appreciated, miss out on a very profitable opportunity for themselves. As a rule, in any company, at any enterprise, the most conscientious and honest employees are those who are embarrassed to ask for help, people with low self-esteem. They are not noticed by their superiors and are not appreciated. We do not ask because we do not trust people. Lack of basic trust is the main problem of backward and archaic societies. Economists estimate this indicator based on special sociological surveys. In poor countries, the level of basic trust of a person in society, in the state, in social institutions is much lower than in prosperous and happy countries. For example, the secret of the success of Sweden, Finland and other developed European countries lies in the fact that, according to scientific data, this level of basic trust of people in society in these countries is very high. People trust authorities, the police, the courts more, and accordingly are more willing to pay taxes and feel more secure, socially supported. If we trusted the world more, we would become more enterprising, more successful, take initiative more often, bring more benefit to each other and to society as a whole. Psychologists claim that basic trust is established in a person in childhood. But still, any quality, any ability of a person can and should be worked on at any age, developed, pumped up these useful skills in yourself. The level of our basic trust determines whether we will be active and patient, whether we will be sure that other people will support us if something happens. Otherwise, we will always fall into despair at the first difficulty, constantly retreat before trials. People who are convinced that the whole world is against them, that there are only enemies around, will never achieve success in life. All my personal life experience and the experience of many successful people I know tell us that asking is actually possible and necessary. This is a very useful skill. It is not for nothing that there is such a saying, you don't get hit in the nose for asking. It often happens that we regret that we did not help a loved one at some point. Although we could and had all the tools for this. Why? Simply because he did not ask us for such help in a timely manner. For example, elderly parents often do not find the strength to ask their children for help. They are embarrassed, afraid to cause inconvenience with their request. And we ask, well, why didn't you ask? And we, decent people, still feel some sense of guilt. By the way, this channel had a very useful and interesting video on this topic, which is called, How to Recognize a Decent Person. A reliable way to filter out bad people. In fact, people like to help others. We feel good from the very thought that we once helped someone. And sometimes, we even like it when we are asked for feasible help. So asking is like granting a privilege to another person, the privilege of helping us. But do not forget that the help provided is not a deal. And a decent person will never expect compensation for his help. If we were supported, we were once helped, then our unspoken duty is to help in return. If not to the same person who helped you, then at least to any other person we meet in life. It is important to answer the world with kindness for kindness. Sometimes we are not able to help, we will have to refuse people, there is nothing shameful in this. But mutual assistance binds us with special social ties. Due to the fact that we are so enchanted by the image of an independent and proud person who never asks anyone for help, we seem to have forgotten how to accept help from other people. Surely you have encountered a situation when you want to give a gift to your loved one, support them financially, for example, but for some reason they refuse to accept this help. For example, parents often want to give money to their already grown-up children, but they refuse, feeling awkward and ashamed. Like, we have already grown up and it is shameful for an adult to take money from elderly parents. I want to give a recommendation, always accept such help from your elderly parents, do not reject it. This will even make them happier. If they have saved up some small amount of money and sincerely want to give it to you, then you need to accept it with gratitude, not refuse and not scold your parents for it. At that moment they want to feel needed by you, they sincerely want to give this gift. To feel important, necessary. No need to try to return this expensive gift at that very moment. No need to be angry at the one who helped or gave you a valuable gift. If you want, you will have the opportunity in the future to give them your care and another valuable gift, if you want. But right now you should not refuse, but rather accept money or any help with gratitude. Being able to be grateful for help is an important quality that distinguishes, by the way, successful people from unsuccessful ones. I see this in the example of many of my acquaintances, successful people, from my experience of communicating with rich, financially successful people. It is also important to ask for help because people may not always know how exactly they can help you, what kind of tool for this to choose. There is a situation when people who want to help make mistakes, act at random, not understanding what kind of help is needed by another person. Sometimes we rush to the rescue, but then it turns out that the victim needed completely different help than we provided. It may turn out that our generosity, such a stupid indiscriminate desire to help, actually brought more harm than good. Sometimes we try to put out the fire of problems with money for our relatives, close people, but in fact the problem is not solved that way. A different tool is needed. For example, we needed just information support and help in making another, sometimes painful, difficult, but correct decision. And trying to solve all problems with money alone, we sometimes only make these problems worse, drive a person into more and more debt. It is difficult for us, people who sincerely want to help, to assess what kind of help is needed, what tool to choose. Therefore asking for specific help means giving us specific information about what the person asking needs at the moment, what his thoughts are. Unfortunately, we cannot always help, and it is important to learn to refuse, that is, to honestly admit that we cannot help, and not to instill false hopes in a person. But it is worth asking for help. It is not considered something humiliating at all. These are my thoughts, friends. Some psychological attitudes that we receive from information on the internet, from works of art, from other sources, can sometimes only harm us. We do not become rich, successful simply because we blindly trust such advice. Proverbs. Therefore, the skill of critical thinking, the skill of reflection, will be useful to you. What we are trying to develop on this channel, discussing all these important questions about life, about finances, about family relationships and so on. Thank you for your attention. Until next time.